I mean, it looks like I'm just, you know, murdering this little garden here, but the plants will thank me for this. The results will absolutely speak for themselves. Hey, it's Greg here with MaritimeGardening.com, and I'm doing a little bit of work in the garden here today. I've got a kale garden, and I've got this sorrel growing in with it. And I discussed this in a previous video, but I find that where the kale and the sorrel are sort of mixed in together, I'm getting the most slug and snail damage. And it's, you know, we're getting close to fall, and fall's when your kale do a lot of growing in September, and they taste their best in October, at least here, when we start getting our first frosts. So I like to harvest a lot of it and freeze and store it for the winter at that time of year. And so I like to position my kale for sort of optimum growth so they can have a really, really good September. They've all got great root systems right now. So even though some of them look like this, right? They've got a healthy root system. So if I can just solve the pest problem, I'm going to have some really good growth, the new growth, right? So as I discussed in my previous video, a good deal of the pests are being caused by the fact that there's too much shade in here, right? Everything's touching, right? The plants aren't spaced out enough. All the plants are touching each other. It's creating a lot of shady spots where the slugs and snails feel happy. And if I can just space things out a little bit more, I don't think the problem is going to be anywhere near as bad as it is now. It's really not that bad. I mean, I still got tons of kale, but why wouldn't I want to get the most out of my plants? So all I'm going to do here is thin this out a little bit and talk you through what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Now, one thing you're going to notice while I'm thinning is that everything I'm pulling, I'm just leaving right where it is, right? I mean, I'm a no-till gardener, so I don't, a big part of that is just having your soil mulch. So if I've got a weed or anything that doesn't belong, you know, I pull it so it doesn't compete with the plants I have for nutrients. So I just weeded that whole line there. How hard was that, right? Here's a weed growing in my walkway. I'll just throw it in the soil, right? But all I'm doing is just going down the side and pulling off. I got more of the sorrel than I could possibly need. So step one for me is just making a little bit of room so I can just see what's going on here. So I'm just ripping up foliage, almost like what they call chop and drop. Okay, I'm just ripping it up. And with the kale, I'm taking every, there's a good one, I'll keep that. But I'm taking every leaf off the kale that doesn't look good. It's not that, there's different colors of the kale, and for this particular variety, I don't want the kale to be a green, I like to be a kind of blue-green. Let me show you what I mean. So this leaf is what I would call a kind of, I don't know my color, being a typical guy, I don't know what colors are, but this one it's a green, but it's got a bit of blue with it. Whereas this one is just green with maybe even a bit of yellow in it with it, right? So edible, you could eat it, but not very good, right? And it's also been damaged a lot, right? So basically I'm removing everything that looks like this, but I'm still laying it on the soil. And you're gonna say, well, man, and same with these stems, just throwing them on the ground here. Yes, I know you can eat the stems. When you got this much kale, you don't have to eat the stems. And trust me, I got more than I could possibly need. So I'm just thinning this whole area out, right? Removing anything that seems to be leaning into the adjacent row. I'm removing it. Here I've got one of these sorrel I've gone to seed. I decided to just let it go to seed, and I'll use the seeds for next year. Okay, so already you got a lot more daylight in here, right? I've already created a lot of daylight just by doing that. It only took a minute. Now what I'm going to do, because I have too many of these sorrel plants, is I'm going to pluck a few of them out. They don't need this many. Right? They're I don't know if sorrel are a perennial or not, but sure as hell don't need this many. There, so already look how much more sensible that seems. All right, so that's the general process. I'm going to bring the camera in and show you a little bit closer up what I'm doing. I'll do another section, show you exactly what I'm doing. No, none of this stuff has to take long. So also, I guess it bears mentioning, I've just replenished my mulch, right? By using all those damaged leaves and the sorrel that I've got here that's just too much, and just throwing it on the ground, I've basically replenished the mulch. So this garden is, when I'm done this, and it's only going to take a few minutes, it's going to be set for optimum growth in September, so I can get all those sweet, juicy, tender kale leaves to harvest. But let me bring the camera in a bit closer here. All right, so here's another section. A lot of snail. That's probably the worst section of the garden here. A lot of snail slug damage here. So I'm going to start over here. I'm just taking everything that's not in the main row. Right, so some of this is weeds that's growing, you know, between the row of where I have things planted, and some of this is foliage that's just leaned over here. I'm just ripping it all off. I got way more than I need here anyway, and it's just such an easy way to weed, right? Okay, now I'm going in between the sorrel and the kale. I'm just ripping away here. Oh, how therapeutic. Have a bad week at work, you know, you're in that mood where you'd like to strangle someone. You can't do that, but you can rip a lot of things. Okay, so now I've basically simplified my sorrel. The sorrel plants are still here. I've just removed a lot of the foliage, a lot of it, and that's fine because I got way more than I need. So now I'm going to remove all the foliage on the kale plants that's got that damage, and I'm just going to leave it right there. Right? Nothing too complicated. Right? Sure, I'm ripping it off at the base. Right? Always do that. Don't leave a little arm or leg hanging off of your kale. So I'm reducing these plants down to nothing. Right? Now I'm just going to shred up any sort of crap that's in between those two rows. One over here. See how easy it is to get. I mean, it looks like I'm just, you know, murdering this little garden here, but the plants will thank me for this. The results will absolutely speak for themselves, right? Already, just by removing, look, there's a little tiny little snail, teeny tiny snail right there. I don't know if you can see that, right? People talking about picking snails off. Come on. What an insane proposition, in my opinion. If you do it, great, but it's sort of an impossible. It would be like trying to kill your ants. If you had an ant problem, trying to kill them with a sword, right? It's just undoable. So I mean, these plants, it looks like that leaf's okay. I'm also removing leaves that seem to be reaching into other plants and touching them, right? Because again, that's causing shade. This one looks edible, just in the wrong place. That one looks all right. Also harvesting my lunch while I'm doing this. But you see how rough I'm going at these plants, right? They've got really strong, well-developed root systems. They will completely, and I can just, you know, it's so easy to remove the leaf. I don't have to worry about them coming out of the ground or being damaged from any of that. There's that section done. It looks like I smashed all this, but all the sorrel will be just fine. It'll just pick back up and start growing towards the light. There we go. Weeded, mulched, and thinned. And here we are, the last section of the garden. Right? I mean, you've been here with me for this whole process. So you've seen how easy this is to do. So, you know, no excuses. Yeah, there's a mole trap. No excuses. This is not hard. You know, if you get up and do yoga every morning or some other thing, some morning just skip your yoga and, you know, be proactive. I did a video a couple weeks ago talking about the 5 mistakes gardeners make, and one of them was just procrastination, not being proactive with problems. Right? I know that my kale put on a lot of growth in September, so it makes a lot of sense to give them the best possible conditions for that. Okay, all right, so here's that same garden from the original angle. What a difference, eh? Right? I'll show you it from a couple other angles here. I just show you it from sort of a panoramic view type thing. But, I mean, look at the difference, right? I mean, there's a lot of green, so it's kind of hard to tell. There's one I missed. There's a lot of green, so it's kind of on the ground. So it's kind of hard to tell what does and doesn't belong. But I think you can see that basically the plants, everything's been thinned out now. And the, you know, the slugs have plenty to work with on the ground there. It's very risky for them to come up and get into the sort of the actual foliage of the plant that I want to eat. It's much more risky for them to attack that foliage now than it was before. So I think, and notice how down this line, the kale is no longer touching the sorrel. So, you know, again, it's a pretty bad neighborhood if you're a slug or a snail. Probably better to just find things in the soil, find rotting vegetation, and focus on that, and leave the green growth alone, which is what I expect them to do. I mean, I have a garden tour every month if you're new to my channel, so you know this is one of the first gardens I show. So you know, you'll see, you know, usually the first weekend of every month. Once in a while I slip up on that. So probably next weekend I'll have a garden tour. You'll see a little bit of a difference here. All the stuff we put on the ground will have turned brown, right? And this time of year the kale grow really fast. So even by then, a week from tomorrow, it's a Friday today, I get the day off, you'll probably see a bit of a difference, but maybe the first Saturday of October you'll really see the difference here. You see a real difference in this garden. All right, so slugs and snails, yeah, we don't like them as gardeners, but they can be a friend, and if you understand their psychology, you understand their behavior, you can do really simple things to minimize the effect that they have on your plants and maximize the positive effects they can have on your soil, because they love breaking down. If you've got some kind of mulch on the ground, especially rotting vegetation, they love that stuff. And if you create a situation where it's risky to be up in the plant, but safe to be on the ground, they'll stay on the ground and deal with what's there. Yeah, they might climb up your plant at night, but you're lowering the number of hours of the day that they're going to be out, right? They're not going to come out until after dark, sort of thing. And it's just getting into this time of the year, it gets colder and colder and colder at night. So there's going to be nights where they don't come out because it's cold, too cold for them, or colder than they would like, and so on and so forth. So yeah, just one more simple way to deal with weeds, deal with pests. Not very hard at all, and get great results. So I hope you found that interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Don't forget to click the bell so you know when I drop a new video. And until next time, get out there, get at it, Have fun in your garden. Thanks for watching.